I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
What do you mean, you people?
Say hello to my little friend!
Hello, pretty.
Daddy loves Froggy. Froggy love Daddy?
Yes! We're all different! Oh, no.
Welcome to this episode of The Good, the Bad and the Odd with your host Mark. Today I'll be talking about the remake of Fright Night.
Adam Johnson. Adam?
You know Adam's missing, right?
Right, kids aren't coming to school. It happens all the time.
I don't know if you were paying attention to roll call, but he's not the only one that's gone.
You're nuts.
This is my son, Charlie, and his girlfriend.
Hi. So Jerry is our new neighbor.
Hey.
Now listen to me. We graphed up all the disappearances. That's you right there in the center next to his house. I really hate to be the one to tell you this, but that guy, your neighbor?
Jerry.
Yeah, he's a vampire.
That is a terrible vampire name. Jerry?
Right, Fright Night was a film originally made in the 1985, I think, starring Roddy McDowall, Chris Sarandon, and lots of people you probably never heard of. It was quite a pretty good film, but this is a modern update of it. This one stars people more famous. Anton Yelchin is the main character, Charlie Brewster, who I've only ever seen in the Star Trek film as Chekhov, and he was pretty good in that, and he's very good in this, has to be said. He also stars Colin Farrell as Jerry, the main vampire character. Toni Collette's in it as Charlie's mum. David Tennant's in it as the updated version of Peter Vincent, and Christopher Mintz-Platz is in it as Charlie's friend Ed. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I kind of enjoyed it. It does some interesting updates, quite good ones actually. I mean, in the original, Peter Vincent is a host of a horror show called Fright Night, where he's going through older horror movies. He's also basically some sort of amalgam of Vincent Price and Peter Cushing, I think. He's a horror actor, you know, where he fights vampires and stuff in movies, and he presents himself as if he did it for real in his TV show, which is kind of interesting. Which is why Charlie latches onto him, because he needs some help, because he's pretty convinced the vampire's next door. In that movie, Peter Vincent really didn't believe him, but because Charlie's girlfriend offered cash, he went along with it, and then slowly realised by catching the non-reflection of the vampire in a mirror that he was dealing with something he wasn't aware of really existed, and his character arc goes from being very frightened, hiding, and in the end, realising he has to go help. Slightly different in this. David Tennant plays him as a Russell. I think they wanted Russell Brand for this and couldn't get him, and cast David Tennant instead because he acts very Russell Brandish. However, he's very good. But in this, he's got like a Vegas magic show, a bit like what's his name? I can't remember. The guy that made the Statue of Liberty disappear. And it's quite a cool show, and he claims to have all this arcane knowledge of vampires. And in fact, you find out he has some sort of knowledge because he's got old books about it. But you don't quite know what's going on there. And he's fine. The problem is the character's underwritten. It's fairly... When you've got someone as good as, say, David Tennant, you really need to write up the character a bit more and have him being more centre stage, and this is more of a peripheral character, which is a shame. One of my problems with the film was that. And the whole film in tone, I think, had problems in that it wasn't as fun as it should have been, and it wasn't as scary as it should have been. So it was generally a bit less than you would expect from it. The original had quite a good balance of laughs and scares, actually. More scares than laughs, but it worked well. The tone of it worked well. It treated his vampire as really scary things. And the bits with the vampire were scary. However, that's not to say this film's not without its virtues. It was kind of cool, but it could have been a bit scarier. Colin Farrell was fine as Jerry the Vampire. it was obvious he was kind of magnetic. The women kind of liked him, and you could see why. First, he's in shape, and he was kind of charming, and he's quite a good-looking man, and I kind of like that. There was issues with, I think, with the Peter Vincent story. It was a bit odd. It turned out that his parents, I think, were killed by vampires, and he's been in denial, and he sort of deals with his angst and issues around it by sort of precipitating out in this stage show, which was kind of an interesting take, but didn't quite gel. He didn't seem to recognise Colin Farrell for a start, but Colin Farrell recognised him, funny enough. And there was kind of interesting things, but it wasn't quite written as well as it could have been. There were some nice touches about this film. I haven't said all these bad things about it. It had some nice callbacks to the original. Colin Farrell eating an apple was kind of funny. That was kind of iconic from the first one. Chris Sarandon eating an apple was kind of iconic. There's also a thing where he has these long nails and he runs them along something, which again Chris Sarandon did when he was walking downstairs. In the original, there was a few other callbacks. There was Ed that says the line, "Oh, you're so cool, Brewster," but he does it ironically in this film, rather, which he kind of does in the original, to be honest. But that line is in there, which is kind of cool. And there's the makeup. There was callbacks in the makeup. One of the things that's memorable about the first film is there's a like vampire face makeup where the mouth's really big and lots of teeth. They do that in this, and they do it really well. I also kind of like some of they reuse some of the lore. For example, the cross doesn't bother the vampire unless you believe in it. They made that point in this film. I also like the modern touch in that the vampire can't be seen in videos or through cameras. Which was their way of spotting him, making him realise he was a vampire. That was a nice touch. And I also like the fact that these vampires were just brutal. They weren't like messed about, wimpy ones. And I actually make a joke about Twilight in this film, Twilight vampires. And the ending was rather good. There was a mass attack. Basically, his girlfriend Amy gets turned. Oh yeah, one of the other things that didn't quite work for me in this is, in the original, the girlfriend's kind of cute, reasonably looking. You see him as a couple, that it works. In this, his girlfriend's she's beautiful, and you don't quite understand what she sees in him, to be honest. Well, you kind of can. She kind of explains herself, but she's so good looking. She's not the cute, girl next door that changes and becomes like a rabid vampire at the end in the same way. But it was okay. The ending was as I say, was good fun. And David Tennant sort of had a bit more to do in that. That was quite cool. And overall, I kind of liked it. IMDb rates this as 6.5 out of 10, and myself, I'd give it 60 out of 100. So I'm rated a tiny bit lower, but not too far off the thing. And I'd have to say this would make a rather fine double bill with the original. Watch the original first, and then watch this. And it was good fun. It didn't really bring anything new to the table. It's kind of a pointless one, other than introducing the film, which has got a nice solid story and some interesting ideas to like a new audience. Much like a lot of remakes these days, they don't really add anything. They're just like putting different actors in the same thing and going through the same motions just to sell it to a new audience. Whereas maybe the original's better or just as good, really. Okay, there's my views on it. Bye. You can visit us at our website www.thegoodthebadandtheodd.com, or you can leave us feedback on info@thegoodthebadandtheodd.com. Any feedback you leave will be greatly appreciated, and we should be sure to mention you. We'd also very much like any iTunes reviews.